This is the Sandiganbayan Centennial Building, the seat of the Philippines' specialized, exclusive anti-graft court. Its primary function is to try high-ranking public officials accused of corruption and crimes committed while performing their official duties. There is a common misconception in the legal community that a salary grade of 27 or higher automatically triggers the Sandiganbayan's jurisdiction. In practice, a high-ranking official can be formally charged with a severe crime, and yet this specialized court can remain legally unauthorized to hear the case. Before a single piece of evidence is presented or a witness takes the stand, a case can be entirely dismissed on jurisdictional grounds. This outcome depends entirely on the formal charging document, known in criminal procedure as the information. Subject matter jurisdiction in these cases is not determined by the identity or rank of the person charged, but strictly by the precise linguistic construction of the information itself. The landmark jurisprudence that defines this strict procedural boundary is Lacson v. Executive Secretary. This case established a rigid standard for how the prosecution must plead its case to the court. To understand this doctrine, we have to deconstruct the internal logic of the charging document. The defense's first move is often to scrutinize this single document for structural flaws. If the prosecution relies on assumptions or outside context rather than explicit text, the document is considered fatally flawed. We will use the Lacson doctrine as a diagnostic tool to find the exact missing elements that cause an information to fail. The prosecutor must treat the drafting of the information as a precise technical requirement. A single missing factual averment can result in the case being dismissed before it begins. The bedrock rule of criminal procedure is that while jurisdiction is conferred by law, it is triggered exclusively by the allegations on the page. A judge cannot look at police reports, witness affidavits, or outside evidence to determine jurisdiction at the filing stage. The court's evaluation is strictly confined to the four corners of the information. This textbook page defines how courts determine the true nature of a charge. It specifies that what determines the true nature of the charge is the actual recital of the facts in the complaint or information. An actual recital of facts requires specific, granular details of the actions taken. It is not enough to simply copy the language of a penal statute. There is a critical distinction between factual averments and legal conclusions. Stating he committed graft is a conclusion. Stating he used his official signature on June 5th to bypass Protocol X is a factual averment. The literal text of the information is the sole foundation upon which the Sandiganbayan can legally build a trial. By Philippine law, the Sandiganbayan covers offenses specifically committed in relation to office. The phrase "in relation to office" operates as a specific legal test with three interlocking elements. First, the act must be intimately connected with the office. This means the act must be tied to the specific legal powers of that exact government position. Second, the act must have been perpetrated while the accused was performing official functions. This requirement applies even if the performance of that function was improper, irregular, or illegal. Third, the crime must be impossible to commit without de-office, indicating there was no purely personal motive. For the Sandiganbayan to take the case, the actual facts written in the information must objectively demonstrate that all three of these conditions exist simultaneously. We can apply the intimate relation test to a defective charging document to see exactly where it fails. In this example, the prosecutor has listed the accused's high-ranking government title. However, stating the accused as a mayor or director does not, by itself, satisfy the test. If the allegation simply says, "the accused did then and there willfully commit murder," the document is incomplete. While a crime is alleged, the document fails to explain the mechanism by which the office was used to facilitate the crime. Under the Lacson mandate, it is insufficient for the intimate relation to exist in reality. That relation must be explicitly detailed within the text of the document. Because this document relies on inference rather than explicit factual averments, the court cannot establish its own jurisdiction. This leads to the failure state described in the textbook. Hence, where the information is wanting in specific factual averments to show the intimate relationships, the Sandiganbayan has no jurisdiction over the case. This rule is anchored in footnote 102, Lacson versus Executive Secretary. The defense uses a motion to quash as the procedural tool to point out this defect and demand an immediate dismissal. A defective information strips the specialized court of its power, stopping the trial before it even begins, regardless of the accused's salary grade. To survive a motion to quash, a prosecutor must construct the document to meet every technical requirement of the Lacson standard. The 3 elements of the intimate relation test must map directly onto specific sentences within the document. The text must explicitly detail the exact protocols bypassed and government resources used to commit the offense. This level of detail establishes the court's authority. The boundary of the court's authority is drawn entirely by the prosecutor's pen. Providing specific factual averments tying the crime to the discharge of official functions is a non-negotiable requirement for an anti-graft prosecution. The Lacson doctrine serves a specific function within the broader Philippine justice system. This strict standard prevents the Sandiganbayan from becoming a general criminal court for anyone who happens to hold a government title. It preserves the court's specialized focus for offenses that are inherently tied to the abuse of public office. Lacson v. Executive Secretary functions as the ultimate procedural checkpoint. In criminal procedure, the highest ranks of power remain subject to the rigid, mechanical rules of legal drafting.